All right, so you know how we're always talking about large language models, like those AI systems that can write and translate and even code?
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to do a deep dive into making them more efficient because as cool as LLMs are,
Mm-hmm.
they can be real resource hogs.
Yeah, definitely.
You actually sent in a research paper. It's called Divide or Conquer. Which part should you distill your LLM? And it's got a really clever idea for tackling this whole efficiency thing.
Interesting.
So instead of trying to shrink down the entire model,
Right.
what if we just focused on distilling the parts that are like the most computationally expensive?
Hmm. That's fascinating. So the researchers are basically saying instead of thinking of an LLM as this one big brain,
Okay.
maybe we should think of it as having two distinct capabilities,
Oh, okay.
decomposition and solving.
Okay, so two brains for the price of one, huh? What do these brains actually do?
Well, decomposition is all about planning. It's like figuring out the steps you need to take to solve a problem, like mapping out a road trip.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So decomposition is like planning the route, figuring out where to stop for snacks,
Yeah.
making sure you reach your destination.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And then solving is the part that actually executes the plan. It's where the LLM uses its knowledge to do things like, calculations or answering questions or generating texts.
Okay, so if decomposition is mapping out the road trip, solving is actually like getting behind the wheel and driving.
Yeah.
You need both to have a successful journey, right?
Yeah, precisely. And what's really interesting here is that, previous attempts to make LLMs more efficient tried to distill both of these capabilities into one smaller model,
Mhm.
and the results were, I guess you could say, kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
And this research is kind of asking, well, what if we just focus on distilling the planner, just the decomposition part?
That's a really interesting approach.
Hmm.
But is it even possible? Can you really separate those two brains like that?
Well, that was definitely the challenge. They started with a really powerful LLM called GPT 3.5 Turbo, and basically trained it to break down complex problems into smaller steps. This became their teacher model.
Okay, so they basically taught the teacher model how to plan really, really well.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then they used those planning examples to train smaller student models,
Hmm.
things like Vicuna 13B or Mistral 7B,
Uh-huh.
to do the same thing. The idea was to see if these smaller models could kind of learn the arc of planning from the teacher.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Did it work? Could those student models actually learn to plan as well as that big, powerful teacher model?
Yeah, the results were actually pretty impressive. They found that those distilled decomposition models were almost as effective at planning as the original, much larger LLM.
Wow, that's amazing. So they essentially created a mini planner that can kind of, rival the big leagues. I'm curious, though, how do they actually measure how well those smaller models were planning?
They tested them on a really wide range of tasks,
Mm-hmm.
from like solving math problems to answering factual questions.
Okay.
And uh, here's where it gets even more interesting.
All right.
They found that these smaller models could actually generalize their planning abilities across those different types of tasks.
So it's not like they just learned to plan for one specific type of problem then. They actually developed a more general planning skill set that they could then apply to different challenges.
Exactly.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's really important
Right.
because it means that these distilled models aren't just, one-trick ponies.
Right.
They have the potential to be really adaptable and useful across all sorts of applications.
Okay, so that's a huge win for efficiency then.
Yeah.
If we can create these smaller, more specialized models that are just as good at planning as their larger counterparts, it just opens up so many possibilities, right?
Absolutely. Think about it, like cheaper, faster AI that can still tackle those complex problems. This could be a game changer for things like personalized AI assistants or robotics or so many other fields.
Definitely. Okay, so we've kind of established that distilling this decomposition brain seems to be a viable approach. But the big question is why? Why is it easier to distill decomposition than solving?
That's a great question. And it seems to come down to the nature of the tasks themselves. So decomposition relies more on logic and reasoning. It's about understanding the structure of a problem and then breaking it down in a really systematic way. It's kind of like learning the rules of grammar.
Okay, so decomposition is like learning the rules of the game, the underlying principles that guide how you approach a problem.
Right. Solving, on the other hand, often requires like vast amounts of factual knowledge and specific skills. It's more about knowing the content, like memorizing a whole dictionary.
So it's like the difference between understanding the grammar rules
Yeah.
and actually knowing all the words in the dictionary then. One is about the structure and the other is about the content.
That's a great way to put it. And that seems to be why distilling the solving brain is so much harder. It's much more difficult to compress all of that knowledge and experience into a smaller model without losing something really important.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're trying to shrink down this massive LLM, it's going to be easier to distill the logical reasoning part than the part that's packed with tons of specific facts and figures and stuff.
Exactly. And this has some really interesting implications for how we design and develop efficient AI systems in the future.
Absolutely. It seems like decoupling these two capabilities might be the key to unlocking this whole new level of AI efficiency.
That's what the research is suggesting. And it opens up some really fascinating avenues for exploration. For example, the researchers also looked at two different ways to plan, static and dynamic.
Okay, so two different planning styles. What's the difference between static and dynamic planning?
So static planning is all about breaking down the entire problem up front. It's like creating a detailed roadmap before you even start your journey.
So you have the whole plan laid out from the very beginning. No detours, no surprises.
Exactly. Dynamic planning, on the other hand, is more flexible. It's about planning one step at a time and kind of adjusting your plan as you go, based on the information you gather along the way.
So more like a choose-your-own-adventure type of planning. You might change your route or make a detour based on, based on what you discover as you go along.
Precisely. And you might think that dynamic planning would be more effective because it allows for that flexibility and adaptation.
Yeah.
But the researchers actually found that static planning led to much better results in their experiments.
Probably. That's surprising. I would have thought that being able to adapt on the fly would give you more of an advantage. Why do you think static planning performed better?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll definitely delve into further in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, cliffhanger. I can't wait to hear more about why static planning might be the surprising winner in this whole AI showdown. Stay tuned, folks.
Welcome back. So before we really dig into why static planning might be more effective, let's talk a bit about how the researchers actually implemented it in their study.
Okay, so how did they put this static planning into action?
Well, they took some inspiration from a system called Hugging GPT. It uses a large language model as a kind of, I guess you could say like a manager. It delegates tasks to a team of more specialized AI models.
Oh, so it's like a project manager for AI. It divides up the work and assigns, the right expert to each task.
Exactly. So instead of relying on one giant LLM to do everything, Hugging GPT kind of breaks down the problem and then calls upon those specialized models, each with their own area of expertise.
That makes sense. Divide and conquer, right? But how does this relate to the static planning they used in the research?
Well, they actually adopted a similar approach for static planning. So they started with the LLM, the planner, and had it generate a set of sub-questions that break down the main problem into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay, so it's kind of like creating a detailed outline before writing an essay. You break down that big topic into smaller points that are easier to tackle.
Precisely. And then, just like Hugging GPT kind of assigns those tasks to different experts, each of these sub-questions is answered independently by the solver part of the LLM. And finally, those answers are all combined to kind of reach that overall solution.
It's a very systematic and structured way of problem solving.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be more efficient. But does breaking down the problem like this affect the accuracy of the answers at all?
That's a crucial question. And
Yeah.
the researchers actually found that this approach didn't really negatively impact accuracy. In fact, as we mentioned earlier, static planning often led to even better results than dynamic planning.
That's pretty remarkable. So they're getting efficiency and the accuracy with this approach.
Uh-huh.
There's got to be more to it than just, breaking down the problem, though, right? The sub-questions themselves must play a really crucial role.
Absolutely. The quality of those sub-questions is absolutely critical. They need to be clear and relevant and structured in a way that guides the solver effectively.
So it's not just about dividing the problem, it's about dividing it in the right way.
Exactly. The researchers really emphasized that if those sub-questions are, if they're poorly formed or vague or irrelevant, it can really derail that whole solving process.
Can you give an example of how a sub-question could kind of go wrong?
Sure.
Yeah.
Imagine you ask an LLM to help you plan a trip to Paris. A poorly trained model might generate a sub-question like, what are the best recipes for French pastries? It's related to France, but it's not exactly helpful for planning a trip. you know?
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster, not a trip itinerary.
Exactly. Or it could go the other way and generate these overly specific questions that kind of miss the big picture. It might ask something like, what time does the Eiffel Tower open?
Right.
Without even considering your overall sightseeing plans.
So it's like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle by just focusing on these individual pieces without ever seeing that whole picture.
That's a great analogy. The researchers really highlighted this need for balance, you know?
Yeah.
The balance between specificity and then that broader context when they were generating those sub-questions.
Yeah, it makes you really appreciate the complexity of something that seems so simple on the surface.
Yeah,
Just asking the right questions.
it does. And it's definitely something that LLMs are still learning to do well. That ability to generate high-quality sub-questions is a really active area of research.
Now, you mentioned earlier that the researchers also looked at dynamic planning. Did they find any situations where that approach was maybe more effective?
While their experiments really favored static planning, they definitely acknowledge that dynamic planning has, it has a lot of potential,
Hmm.
especially for problems that are maybe less structured and require more adaptability.
So for tasks where you might need to, change course based on new information
Mm-mm.
or unexpected developments.
Exactly. Think about a self-driving car. It needs to be able to react to these constantly changing road conditions and make adjustments in real time.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can't really plan out every single scenario a self-driving car might encounter.
Right. So in those cases, dynamic planning,
Sure.
where the planning and solving are, a bit more intertwined, might be a better approach.
Okay, so static planning kind of wins for efficiency and accuracy in those well-defined tasks, but dynamic planning might be more suitable for situations that require that real-time adaptation.
That's a really good summary. Now, their research mainly focused on static planning, and it's definitely clear that more research is needed to fully understand the strengths and limitations you know, of both approaches.
Now, we spent a lot of time talking about distilling this decomposition brain, but the researchers didn't stop there, did they? They also tried to distill the solving part.
Yeah, they did. And as you might expect, that proved to be a much bigger challenge.
Yeah, because solving is all about that vast knowledge base, right? Not so easy to kind of shrink down.
Exactly. And their findings definitely confirm that. When they tried to distill that solving capability into those smaller models, they saw, a pretty significant drop in performance.
It's like trying to condense an entire encyclopedia into like a pamphlet. You're bound to lose something important along the way.
That's a good way to visualize it. So while distilling decomposition really shows promise for creating those more efficient LLMs, distilling that solving capability presents much bigger hurdle.
It seems like we might need different strategies for tackling that whole efficiency problem then when it
Right.
comes to solving maybe, new compression techniques or different ways of actually structuring knowledge.
Absolutely. This research opens up a lot of fascinating questions for future exploration. But there's one more kind of interesting finding from the paper that I think is worth discussing. They found that when they trained a model exclusively on decomposition, it actually got worse at solving it.
Really? So it's like becoming so focused on planning that you forget how to actually execute the plan.
Precisely. It highlights this kind of delicate balance between these two capabilities. So while separating them can lead to efficiency gains, over-specialization can also kind of, backfire a little bit.
It reminds me of that saying, jack of all trades, master of none.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it's more like master of one, worst at all the others.
A very astute observation. It really reinforces that idea that while specialization is really important,
Mm-hmm.
we also need to maintain that, that broader perspective
Yeah.
and a certain level of adaptability.
Yeah, this feels like a really valuable insight, not just for AI development, but for us as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes over-focusing on one skill or area of expertise can make us, less effective in others.
Well said. It's about finding that sweet spot between specialized knowledge and then a more holistic understanding.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, it seems like the key takeaway is that while distilling decomposition is a really promising avenue for creating more efficient LLMs,
Right.
we need to be mindful of the potential trade-offs.
I definitely agree, and we need to keep exploring those creative solutions for making solving more efficient as well.
This has been a fascinating look into the inner workings of LLMs.
Yeah.
Now I'm really curious to kind of explore the practical implications of all this research.
That's a great segue. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll actually delve into the potential real-world applications of these efficient LLM techniques, so stay tuned.
Welcome back. We've been on quite a journey
Hmm.
exploring this fascinating world of efficient LLMs. We've talked about decomposition and solving,
Hmm.
static and dynamic planning,
Hmm.
and all those challenges of kind of shrinking down those massive AI brains. Now, I'm really excited to kind of shift gears a bit
Hmm.
and talk about the practical implications of all this research. How could these discoveries about making LLMs more efficient actually change the way we use AI in the real world?
Yeah, that's the big question. It really does open up a whole world of possibilities. One area that immediately comes to mind is personalized AI assistance.
Oh, personalized AI assistants. That sounds so cool. Imagine having an AI assistant that's tailored to your specific needs and preferences, one that learns your habits, anticipates your requests, and helps you navigate your daily life with like incredible efficiency.
Exactly. And with these advancements in efficient LLMs, right, we could create these personalized assistants without needing those massive computational resources. So they could be fast, responsive, and affordable, making them accessible to a much wider audience.
Yeah, no more waiting forever for your AI assistant to process a simple request or anything. It'd be like having this super smart sidekick who's
No.
always one step ahead, ready to assist you with anything you need.
Yeah, precisely. And these assistants could be specialized for different domains as
Oh,
well.
okay.
Imagine AI tutors that adapt to a student's individual learning style,
Mm.
or AI collaborators that help writers brainstorm and refine their ideas.
That's incredible. It would completely revolutionize education and creative fields. Students could have these personalized learning experiences that cater to their strengths and weaknesses,
Mm.
and writers could overcome writer's block and unlock new levels of creativity
Right.
with the help of their AI partners.
And it doesn't stop there. Like, think about healthcare. We could have AI assistants that help doctors diagnose diseases more accurately, or provide personalized treatment recommendations based on a patient's medical history and genetic profile.
Yeah, the possibilities for personalized medicine are pretty mind-boggling.
They are. And beyond personalized assistance, right? These efficient LM techniques could also impact other areas like robotics, smart homes, even self-driving cars.
Wow, self-driving cars that are powered by these smaller, more efficient AI brains.
Mm,
It's amazing to think that we're getting closer and closer to a future where
right.
AI is just seamlessly integrated into our lives.
It's definitely an exciting time. And one of the key takeaways, I think, from this research is this emphasis on generalization. They really wanted to make sure that these smaller distilled LLMs could actually handle a wide range of tasks, not just those niche applications.
Right, and they succeeded. Right, the models performed well across all those different domains,
Yeah.
which is really encouraging.
Yeah, they did. It suggests that these efficiency techniques have really broad applicability, which paves the way for more versatile and adaptable AI systems.
That's fantastic. So it means that we could see these advancements being used to address a really wide array of challenges, from personalized medicine to climate change.
Exactly. And it also opens up the possibility of creating more modular and customizable AI systems.
Oh,
Imagine being able to combine different AI modules, like building blocks,
mm.
to create a system that's perfectly suited to your specific
It's
needs.
like AI Legos. The possibilities are endless.
I love that. That wonderful analogy. So this modular approach could really accelerate AI development and lead to a Cambrian explosion of new applications.
This all sounds incredibly promising,
Mm.
but I know there are still some challenges to overcome. We talked about the difficulty of distilling that
Yeah.
solving capability, which relies on that vast amount of factual knowledge, right?
Yeah, for sure. That remains a significant hurdle. Finding more effective ways to represent and compress knowledge is really crucial for making solving more efficient.
Yeah. And even with all the progress we've made in distilling decomposition,
Mm.
there's always room for improvement, right?
Of course, the
But
the quality and relevance of those sub-questions generated by the LLMs are crucial for accurate and efficient problem solving. So developing more sophisticated techniques for decomposition is definitely an ongoing area of research.
it sounds like we've only just scratched the surface of what's possible with these efficient LLMs. So as we wrap up our deep dive into this fascinating research,
Mm.
what's the key takeaway for our listener? What should they be thinking about as they go about their day?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we're entering this new era of AI, an era where efficiency and specialization and adaptability are really paramount. So by decoupling and distilling those core capabilities of LLMs, we can create more powerful and accessible and customizable AI systems that have the potential to truly revolutionize our world.
That's an incredibly inspiring message. It definitely leaves me feeling, feeling excited about the future and all the incredible possibilities that lie ahead as we continue to unlock the potential of AI. And for you, dear listener, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity
Hmm.
and given you a glimpse into this incredible world of AI research. Remember, the future is shaped by the questions we ask and the problems we choose to solve. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the knowledge that matters most. Until next time.